Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wob194. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for a book that I'd been hearing about for ages. One that I heard about back in high school when I was reading horror for the first time, really. After my 9th grade summer, I got into Stephen King and Richard Lehman, and this book was brought up all the time by people that loved Brian Keene, who I eventually got into, and so on and so on. It's a J.F. Gonzalez book that's co-written by Mark Williams, who passed away. I think J.F. Gonzalez is gone too, which is sad, frankly. This book is called Clickers. It's about 302 or 305 pages, something like that. And this cover art always creeped me out. There's this thing here, this monster I'll get into in a moment, and then this guy that I'm not sure if he's dead or about to die. He looks dead. I don't know. Very weird picture. Anyway, 300 pages long about a guy named Rick who is a novelist going to a Maine town that's kind of out by itself, a small town community. And there's like a lake nearby and all of that stuff. Anyway, or I guess an ocean. I don't know. I guess there's an ocean nearby, something like that. Anyway, while he's there, kind of getting to know some small town folk and meeting a couple of girls that he has a thing for. One of them even has a kid, which is a bonus accessory, I guess. Basically, he is caught in a situation where a bunch of gigantic crabs that have kind of a scorpion tail on the end of them that has poison coming out of it in a more horrific fashion I'll get into in just a moment. Those crabs come up out of the water and onto the beach and then eventually into the city, and they are killing and eating everybody in the town. This book is fantastic. If you love that kind of zombie apocalypse hiding in a meat locker type of story, while trying to hide from zombies, but in this case it's giant creature feature crabs. If you love that kind of thing, this book is for you. I recommend it highly. However, I have some caveats to that. First of those being, it's a little messy. It's not the most well-written book. It kind of jumps around a little too much about characters that don't even really become prominent characters in the story. Stephen King is guilty of this too with like The Stand extended cut. So that kind of thing is here to kind of fluff it out a little bit more. It didn't need to be there, but it was. But I will tell you this, there's some things that happen later on with the crabs, and some fears that the crabs have, that I think are some of the most stupid things I've ever seen in my life, added into a book. It felt desperate. It felt like it was a desperation attempt to get away from what this book was in its heart as a creature feature, and I feel like that was a giant mistake from these writers that I do respect quite a bit. The writing is fine, nothing too distracting, I will say too. But let's get back to the crab monsters themselves. I am terrified of creatures from the ocean, especially crabs. I hate motherfucking crabs. Those things are creepy, they freak me out. I don't like the clicking noises they make, which hence are why these things are called clickers. As they move around, they click a lot, and their pinchers click and stuff. But like I said, these crabs are not normal. They are humongous, and they have scorpion tails on them that when they stab you, you basically get an injection of poison that basically bursts your skin at some point. You swell up really bad, then you burst. And the introduction of this book, of having somebody get stabbed in the arm with that, was horrific. The book is very, very bloody. Like I said, these scorpions, or crabs, excuse me. The scorpion tail thing threw me off. These crabs are eating people, and it is gruesome for that. If you are not down for that, if that sounds like too much for you as a horror fan, you need to understand this book is all about that. They are eating people while they're alive, eating people when they're dead, eating their own. It is horrific, dude. You have no idea. It's a very effective book for what it's trying to do about grossing you out. But I do have to tell you, as much as I love extreme horror, this book does get repetitive. And again, when they kind of change things up a little towards the last quarter of the book, it really kind of made it even more obnoxious, to be honest with you. And I wasn't a fan of it. Now again, Brian Keene, one of my favorite writers of all time, probably my top 3 authors of all time, he comes in on book 2 after Mark Williams passed away and helps write the sequels from this point on, I think. One of those being Clickers versus Zombies, which sounds awesome. I've got to read that. If Brian Keene is involved, I'm interested. I don't care who's writing with him or if he's by himself. If Brian Keene is doing it, I'm going to read it. So I'm already excited about the sequels to this series, or this book, I guess. But I gotta tell you, this one is not perfect. I recommended it to people like my boy, The Horror Tavern, who used to go by BD Horror, a good friend of mine. He picked the book up already. BD, if you don't like this one, I'm sorry. Because that ending is rough, man. Some of those change-ups. But aside from all of those complaints, and aside from the things I've said so far, The crab monsters are very threatening. I'm all here for the creature feature aspect. I could give less of a shit about the boring, not so well written characters. I could give less of a shit about anything else not having to do with the crab monsters. I am here to watch the giant crabs with scorpion tails that make people inflate and then pop, do their thing, and eat people. That's all I'm here for the whole time, and I love it. So anyway, Clickers, for the most part, satisfies me, but I could totally see it not satisfying you, depending on your interests. If it sounds like it's up your alley, check it out, man. I think it's got some really good stuff in here. And RIP to both of the authors, I believe, but especially Mark Williams, who went first back in the 90s when this was made. Really good read, for the most part. But aside from that, I don't really know how much I can recommend it to you, because you might hate this, you might love it, I don't know what to tell you. But this is not in the extreme horror fashion of something like Layman, or even Keen for that matter. It almost has touches of like a Lovecraft thing to it sometimes, and I don't know how people feel about that, but it's fine for what it is. I like it, I think it's above average for what it is. It's just the ending, and that quarter at the end of the book is a massive ball drop for me, personally, and not in a good way. Anyway, Clickers, have you read it? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and comments about it down in the comments section down below. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give Clickers about maybe a low 4 out of 5 stars, which is still pretty high, you know. I think it's a pretty good, engaging read most of the time, but I gotta be honest, I've lost a little bit of interest in that last quarter, to be frank with you. Anyway, what do you think about it? Have you read the sequel books? Are they any good too? At some point I'll pick them up, probably later in the year, and try to read them at some point this year, because I want to get through a lot of my collection of big stuff I love, like Bentley Little and Richard Layman over here on the side that you really can't see all the way over there that much. I do want to get rid of that stuff, not rid of it, but read it this year, if I have the time, and eventually talk about it. So that's all I have to say. Anyway, what do you think about the series, the single book, whatever? Thank you all for watching, guys. Again, God bless you all, and goodbye.